Hello, everybody, and welcome into another exciting episode of Bloody Good Horror. My name's Eric, and I'll be your host for this evening, where we will be reviewing MaxXxine, the third film in the MaxXxine series. I mean, I don't know what we call these things, but here we are. The trilogy by Ty West. Joining me tonight, first up from Indiana, please welcome Casey.
Hello.
Next up from the Bay Area of San Francisco, please welcome Matilda to the show.
Hi.
And last up this evening from, what did I call it last week, the other week, John? Wretched Hive of Scum and Villainy.
I mean, look, I black out every week.
Please welcome John to the show.
Hey.
You know,
as if I could remember something that happened 3 days ago, Eric.
Yeah.
Please.
I was excited for this movie. I'm excited to talk about it tonight. I'm also excited to never have to type 3 X's with the one in the middle being uppercase again. Because, like, I went back and forth today between trying to type it right and just all lowercase. Like, come on. You got to hit X. And then
I didn't realize they're different cases. I thought they were just all the same case.
I believe the middle X is uppercase, right?
I don't know. That's crazy.
It'd be hilarious if it wasn't. I'm going to Google it.
I don't know. That seems weird.
Oh no, never mind. They're all actually caps. The 3 X's are all caps.
That makes
sense.
I was going to say, if it was capitalized in the middle X, that makes it a sequel to that triple X movie, right? Who was it? Like Vin Diesel and.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They made at least 2 of those. There was, I think, State of the Union was the second one.
They made a bunch of them. Yeah, one of them had Ice Cube in it.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
I knew there was one with Ice Cube, but I wasn't sure it was the first one.
All right, let's take a quick break and review MaxXxine.
This is it, Jennifer. Your big break in TV. From the prime time. Main feature.
So Casey says he got a new trailer for that M. Night Shyamalan hot dump that he's inflicting.
No, me too. I got a new trailer.
See, I wouldn't have known because the second I came on, I went to the bathroom.
Dude, I texted you guys about it. I think the second trailer is actually pretty good. Like, I am now in the camp of like cautiously optimistic.
Well, that's where I would.
If the goal of the first trailer was to give us all just the lowest expectations possible, he nailed it.
It was horrific, and now I'm like, nice.
See, I don't think I saw the first trailer, and so that's why I was texting you guys last night. I'm like, I thought that trailer looked interesting, and I don't know if I'm being an idiot or what.
Does it
what you guys
still
told
have
me.
the food court guy tipping him off? I mean, that has to be in it, right? It's like
No.
a key moment in
The
movie.
key difference from the first trailer that I saw to the second trailer is like, there's a lot more like Josh Hartnett's going to do some crazy shit.
Yeah.
Like there's like a whole sequence where he puts some shit in the like fryer in the food court and it explodes, and like, I mean, he's gonna like kill a bunch of people graphically in the movie, which
Yeah.
you know.
Oh.
I
was
was
talking-
prepared to eat my hat.
I was talking to Colleen last night, though, and telling her about that. And I'm like, it sounds interesting. Serial killer trying to get out of this place where he's locked in with the police. I like the idea, but why would M. Night give away a big twist that Josh Hartnett's the serial killer in
Because
the trailer?
how on earth do you sell this movie without it? I don't think it. It
Well-
looks like a movie where you find out pretty quickly. So,
But see, I think there's definitely going to be another twist.
probably another
It's going to
twist,
be
right.
like
Yes.
the star on the stage is like also involved or something like that. You know.
No, my
Yeah.
guess is, what if it's like a let them in or let me in situation, and his daughter is the serial killer,
Oh,
and he's
I
like
did-
protecting her.
I had that thought as well. Like she's like he has to do it for her. Yeah.
Yeah.
oh, this is great. Rachel says that M. Night shot on 35 millimeter. What do we think about that? Now you're just trolling me because like that I've been begging for people to start shooting on film again, and now you're gonna make me.
Yeah. Well, he put his daughter in the movie too. His other daughter, the non-director one, right?
Thank God.
Right, it's the singer.
I was worried.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was worried she couldn't get a job, so I'm glad that he's helping her out.
But given
All
who,
right.
like, what that concert looks like, that makes me think he's trying to tap into some kind of like anti-Swiftie sentiment or something. If there's like a tease of a bunch of young
Interesting.
women being killed, that's
It did feel
interesting.
very in the Zeitgeist, the whole like
Yeah.
pop concert kind of vibe.
Look, just getting me excited. M. Night, toying with me. Toying
What a
with me.
world. What a world. John, please bring us the word of the day.
Eric, today's word is actually a hat tip to Miss Rachel. Ms. Rachel, I presume. She sent this to me like a week and a half ago before I had seen the movie, which I always appreciate. The word is funicular. 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 I was learning this one as I was looking at it. The first definition is of a railroad, especially one on a mountainside, operating by cable with ascending and descending cars counterbalanced, relating to a rope or its tension. And then it can also be a cable railroad, especially one on a mountainside in which ascending and descending cars are counterbalanced. Funicular, it comes from the Latin funis, which means rope.
Those two words aren't alike at all.
Funis. I mean, you know, it's like
Well,
a
sometimes
stem.
they sound, sometimes they sound similar.
Sure.
John, tell me about MaxXxine.
Yeah, I mean, you sort of mentioned at the top. We should figure out what we are meant to call this trilogy now. Is it the MaxXxine trilogy?
I don't know, dude.
I don't think it can be, right? In any event.
I've heard it called the X trilogy, given it was the first one.
Okay. X trilogy. And then this is XXX. That makes sense. So we had X, then we had Pearl. Those were both 22. Is that right?
Yeah, they came out in the same year, didn't they?
They did. They came out the same year.
Yeah.
And so MaxXxine is now the conclusion, or like what we believe to be the conclusion. And so we're following MaxXxine's Mia Goth, who is playing the same character she was playing in X. She is now living and working as an X-rated film star in LA. She also does like some other
like,
sex
some, like-
worky type stuff on the side.
She's in a peep booth at some point. which is real
Yeah,
old
there's
school.
yes. She.
You know what I want to know, John?
Yeah.
How long does the quarter get you?
Great question.
Can
It
you pay
seems
in
like not
advance?
enough money too. Like, how much money is she
No,
making
that's my point.
out of the
It was-
quarter?
It was 85 though.
Casey,
Yeah.
Still, it's a
the
quarter,
the
bro.
quarter
Like,
is still a quarter.
But well, that's what I'm saying. Does it get you 30 seconds?
Yeah.
Right. Because even in
mean,
85, there
you-
were video games that cost 2 quarters. I mean,
No,
Right,
in 85?
and that-
Really?
yeah.
Oh, well then, yeah, okay.
I have so many questions about the booth, so to speak. But
Please write into the show if you have
Yeah.
been to one of these booths and can, give us some insight into how they. I mean, maybe we could look this up on the internet, but we're not going to do that right now. In any event, she's doing this. The film opens with her basically trying to make her crossover into quote unquote straight film. Now, she's doing that via horror and I would say like, B horror or like very genre focused horror. She's not going like upscale horror necessarily. She's auditioning to be in The Puritan 2, which is a sequel to a famous film, in the the universe of this movie. And she gets the part. And she is sort of making this transition. And what's happening in the background is there's a serial killer called the Night Stalker who is killing kind of like a lot of people. It's not even just sex workers, I don't think.
No.
Like, there's like a bunch of, we get this through like the news clips, there's like, she's passing a wall of TVs at the TV store and they're talking about the Night Stalker. So it's kind of comes in dribs and drabs, but it's a lot of murders. The ones that start to happen in the action of the film, we are led to believe by the police may not actually be Night Stalker killings, but they are being done to like look like Night Stalker killings, and they're also targeting her. She receives a tape that is the tape of the porn movie that she was making in X. And so like she knows she's being targeted, and that's sort of like where this thing jumps off. People around her are dying. We don't know who the killer is. She's like trying to hold down a job, quote unquote. There's a lot of stuff with her and the director, who's I liked a lot, actually. She was great. I couldn't remember what I recognized her from, but I was a fan. So yeah, I don't know. That's it. And then we can get to the end, but like I feel like there's a lot of twists and turns here.
All right. Matilda, as our guest, why don't you give me like a real quick hot take on the first two, and then let me know what you thought about MaxXxine.
So I think I have an unpopular opinion, which is this is my favorite of these three. I think that's probably going to be an unusual opinion. The whole trilogy kind of feels to me much like Lovecraft Country, the show did, in that you get like one episode of body horror and then an episode of sci-fi horror and something else. And I feel like this movie has a pretty difficult job in that it needs to kind of wrap up a trilogy that is very different, that goes in all different directions. And so I think what I thought about this, there are some issues with the third act that I think we'll definitely probably talk about. But other than that, I had a pretty great time. I saw it twice. I saw it a couple weeks ago in a pre-screening with Rachel for her job. And then I saw it again today. And both times I loved the first two acts much more than the third. But I think that Mia Goth's performance here is so incredible. Like, she's able to do things with her face. We're in this era where there are all these women who are actors who were like right up on their face. Like Elizabeth Moss is one of these, right? She's in where you see all the micro expressions. Mia Goth has this in this trilogy, but she's not giving much away. Like, she's almost flat or cold in places and still, but you still want to watch everything she does. And one of my favorite parts of this movie is that it begins, like, it has to do the set dressing of the 80s. And it does it in a way that reminds us that the 80s is like, not just like neon and kitschy and fun. It's like gross and sleazy in places,
That's
right?
The word I was going to use, yeah.
Especially Hollywood Boulevard in the 80s. Like, if you ever went there as a kid in the 80s, you're like, oh, this is grim. This is, and I love that this movie starts where a lot of my favorite 80s movies end, which is at an audition scene with a panel of snobby judges behind a long wooden table being won over by the performance of somebody who they think is too classless to be there, right? This is the end of Flashdance. This is arguably the end of Breakin'. But it's such a good set piece for this. And from there, it kind of goes to that like gritty Brian De Palma, like erotic crime thriller place, including to a club scene that's such a callback to Body Double that it also has a Frankie Goes to Hollywood soundtrack to it. But it plays in these waters, but it's so surprising, right? Like, so it definitely subverted my expectations. For instance, I was surprised by whose naked body was on the wrong side of the knife, or the heel tip in this case.
Yeah. I have a question about that scene. We can get to it later. Yeah. Well, okay, sorry. Let me ask you now. So,
yeah.
Is it an anatomy questionnaire? Because
no.
I feel like you will be as well positioned as anyone.
I
saw the movie with Melanie, and we were talking about the scene afterwards, and she was like, "Oh, that was a dream sequence, right?" And I was like, "What?" And she's like, "Yeah, because like right after that scene, she's waking up on the couch with her friend," and I was like, I don't know. I didn't read it that way when I was there, but I was curious what everyone else thought.
Now, I took it as that's kind of the weird side jobs she picks up to get money.
No, I'm talking about the guy who stalks her in the alley.
Yeah, but she's
Yeah.
leaving
The Buster
work
Keaton.
when that guy is following her.
Yeah.
So
That guy
okay.
is shown, he's one of the barkers in front of the adult
Oh,
clubs
interesting.
Oh, okay.
that
Gotcha.
follows. That's how they, like, I caught it the second time. That's how they position him.
Well, he had a look like even the outfit he was wearing that makes more
the
sense.
Buster
I did
Keaton.
not
Yeah.
catch him. Yeah.
Which, by
Yeah.
the way, since we're talking about that scene, is like one of my favorite one-liners of the whole movie, when she pulls her gun and says, "Look here, Buster."
Yeah. Yeah. I
sorry,
mean,
Anna.
there's so
Continue.
much to talk about. No. There's so
Yeah.
much to talk about here. I was actually having trouble paring it down, but there's some very satisfying violence in this. And every member of the cast seems like they are having the best time. Giancarlo Esposito shows up in
Oh,
a
I love him so
wild
much. I love
toupee.
him. He's so good.
Right. Darth Fring, as he's called in my house because of his Star Wars and Breaking Bad turns. Yeah, everyone seems like Bobby Cannavale is just munching scenery. Kevin Bacon is feasting on everything in sight. I mean, all of it. And then when we get to the actual big bad and the way that plays out, that gets a little tougher for me. But I also think that it was a really heavy lift for Ty West to wrap this up. So
Yeah.
I'm curious what you all thought.
Casey.
I'm not really far off from Matilda's views on this. I enjoyed the hell out of this. I could see where there's some issues in that third act. I think I got an idea what Matilda's talking about, but yeah, I thought this was great, and especially when you put it in the light of this is a weird trilogy to have to come up with an ending for, right? I had no idea what he was going to go for. I'll be honest, there's about the first 10 minutes of this, I was confused and was thinking this, how did Pearl make it to 1985? And then if I finally sorted it out in my head, what's going on here? But that's what makes this makes this trilogy as a whole unique too, because it's a whole trilogy based on two different characters,
I
which
would
is
like
interesting.
a painting of your face just in that moment of you trying to figure it out.
No, it is like somewhat disorienting. I mean, and this is
You have to
intentional.
remind
or-
yourself like where we actually are in the
But the
timeline.
film opens with that. I think it says 1959. The video.
Yeah.
It's a home video of her performing.
Yeah.
And it very much does
That's-
call back to the look of
In
Pearl.
church. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
In reality, it's probably 5 minutes, but that's definitely what set it off. And I'm like, okay, it sent me straight back to like Pearl and what happened in that one. But
Well, 'cause
otherwise,
I was doing the math, and I'm like, wait, so what year is she born? Because she says she's 33, and so then it's 85, and then you're like, oh, so she was 7 in that scene.
Yeah.
It like all worked out, but there was a moment where I had to do too much thinking,
Yeah.
So
well, otherwise, I really enjoyed this movie. I love the atmosphere to it with that whole erotic thriller thing that he's going through here. It's kind of, an undertone to the entire movie until they get into it heavier at the end, but it adds to that grimy feel of LA. And the cast in this was just my favorite part. I thought all the guests, the people they brought in this were great. Giancarlo, Elizabeth Debicki, I thought was great. She was fun.
she's the one that plays the director. that
Yeah.
I was referencing. I realized she's in like Guardians of the Galaxy. I saw
She comes
like
in
Yeah.
and I'm like, she's in her own movie.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
That
I love
character is like out of time or something.
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
She's wearing some important boots. Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Is it-
But I didn't think Halsey was bad either for the short time she was in here.
Yeah.
I
She
don't
started
know
throwing
who-
out her accent, and I'm like, oh, I didn't
I don't
expect that out of
know
her.
who that is. She's like a musician.
She's in Sing, Eric. Sing 2, in fact.
Okay. Who is she in this movie?
Yeah, I wasn't sure who she was actually. I saw she
She's
was in
the
the credits.
peep show friend.
Oh.
She's the
got
peep
it.
show friend with the short, dark hair.
Yeah, that gets killed. Spoiler alert, sorry.
All right, John, what'd you think?
Man, I will say I liked this movie. I think it is probably my least favorite of the three. Now, I will caveat that and say, and when I say the three, I mean of X and Pearl. I have some like weird gripes that I will get into. I didn't 100% know what to expect going into this. I mean, I did because it's like the trailer is not. It's like a pretty accurate trailer. Like you're not getting a head fake in the trailer. But when you think back to Pearl, or you think X, and then you have Pearl, and then you have this film, I think the order that they come out is interesting. I don't know why you do Pearl second, or you release Pearl second, and then you like, why not just go in chronological order? It was one of the questions I had. This movie is a straight up sequel to X in a way that Pearl isn't really a prequel to X, if that makes sense. Like Pearl is a movie that can more or less stand on its own, and you don't need to really know anything about X to enjoy Pearl. It's
sort of. I can't say that. I would be fascinated to find a person who's not seen X and just show them Pearl and be like, "What'd you think of that?"
No one person that says, "Wait, there was
crazy.
2 more."
Like you don't because that's what I remember talking about at the time. Like you don't need to see it from a storyline perspective.
Sure.
But do you give a shit about anything that's happening without the weight of knowing
of where
the
goes.
character
Yeah,
goes,
I mean,
right?
look, that's all fair. I guess what was chafing me a little bit. So first, I'll say Matilda, strongly agree with you. The third act to me, it just feels like too much of a different film at a certain level. Like it's such a far jump. And like, look, I know, I'm sure it's like a reference to some movie that I haven't seen, or I mean, I'm sure it's like being drawn from somewhere. We can get into it later, but in any event, so put a pin in that because I do strongly agree with that point. There's just a lot of like flashbacks to X here, and we're sort of meant to believe that MaxXxine is like dealing with trauma. I mean, which like any human being would, but also we're also meant to believe that she's like, I don't know, above that or like beyond that at some level. Matilda, the way you said it was really interesting that Mia Goth is like, she does the face acting, but she also doesn't like the character of Maxine is almost impenetrable in this movie.
Yeah.
I felt like, and that makes me like it less, I guess. Than she's the main character of X, but like there's a lot of other things going on in X. I've only seen it once. And it's been 2 years. Maybe I need to rewatch. But this, I don't know. This, I felt like this was a little harder to like. It didn't let you in as easily. It's still fun. Like it's great. Like all the things that people mentioned, the character acting that's being done here is just top notch. So I enjoyed it. I'm glad I watched it. But of the three of them, it's the one that I don't know. Maybe I'll watch it again and feel differently, but that's where I sort of landed after one viewing.
I liked it a lot. I would probably put it. I'm trying to fight off recency bias here. I'd probably put it a very close second to X. I really loved X, and I'd put Pearl last. I don't think Pearl's a bad movie, but it just didn't connect with me that much. And what I think is interesting about the series as a whole is like they're 3 completely different movies. And so I actually think it would be shocking if most people had them ranked the same. Like it makes sense to me that people have such wildly different rankings. Like I know a lot of people that will like are ride or die for Pearl and could give a shit about X or like didn't like Maxine, vice versa, whatever.
Well,
So
I just really quick on
it's
that.
interesting
I
how
feel like
divisive, like when you talk about them as a whole, this series kind of seems
X
to be.
to me, X is the easiest to enjoy. It is
agree with
somewhat
that.
more of a straight
Yeah.
horror thing. I mean, it does some weird shit of its
Yeah.
own.
As
just
soon
be
as we get to
clear, but-
Pearl, we're just going deeper up our own butts. So it's like, how far do you want to go?
Yeah.
I think this is
All the way
a
to
lot
Scarecrow
of-
Town. That's how far.
Right. I think it's a lot of fun. I think it looks great. It's really nailing the 80s aesthetic. I think it's obvious, like I've heard it described as genre pastiche, and I think that's a very fair way to say it. And that you know, mileage may vary for some people on that. And I'll be the first to like, oh man, John, it's one of those weeks. You should just be glad you're not on the internet. A lot of like internet movie professors who want to seem really cool because they've seen all the movies that he's referencing and just like, man, it's so derivative. Like, okay, I'm gonna be honest with you and say like all the Brian De Palma stuff, I've seen none of it. Like I'm aware that it exists. I've probably seen it in like clip shows of things, but I've never seen it. So I'm gonna be real with you. There was things in this movie that probably were references to movies that were just new to me because like I haven't seen them.
Which
John.
is okay.
I'm just a heathen. That's why I'm being honest, so people out there can be like, I don't have to act like. Not everybody has to be a fucking internet.
You should.
Like,
Some of the I've not seen all
historian.
of them, but you should watch some of the De Palma stuff is good. You will
So
like it.
absent of having those references, the stuff I really picked up on was the Giallo stuff. Obviously, like there's some pretty heavy Giallo, and those films were influenced by Giallo.
Well, De Palma is like American Giallo. Like that's
Yeah, exactly. So I was thinking of Argento films like Opera or like Tenebrae, stuff like that. I think what makes this so fun is the cast. I love Mia Goth. She's batshit crazy. I love her and everything. Like, you're not wrong about the character, John, but I kind of just like her energy. It's so off the wall, like all the time. There's such like an intensity to like everything she does.
Well, I actually think that's at some level the point of the movie, right? Like that's the point of MaxXxine as a character almost, and like what she's doing. There's a whole maybe we can
like
get
it
into
does,
or not,
right?
but-
It continues the thread from X that she is like a singularly focused person on this goal of becoming famous, right? Now with the added trauma of what happened in X, so that's really a lot of what we're seeing in here is like she's continuing to kind of push towards this goal by any means necessary, but with this added layer of like armor sort of around her because of all this shit that she's gone through, right? I'll tell you, my favorite. She's amazing. She's steals the show. But I loved Kevin Bacon in this movie.
Yeah.
This is what I want to see Kevin Bacon in. Like the last thing I remember seeing him in was some terrible like supernatural family movie we saw where he's like kids are dead or something. I don't fucking know. He had like real
done a
bad.
couple of those.
He had really bad hair dye. Do you remember that? And like, I
He
don't want to
also did
see
that-
that.
He
with-
did
for
that
Kevin
one.
Bacon.
He did the one where he was like torturing. What's her name? I can't remember her name now. Amanda Seyfried.
Oh, I don't think I
Seyfried.
saw that.
We covered it on the show. I'm sure you watched it, but
But like, dude, I want to see him. I want Kevin Bacon to enter his like Nick Cage phase of his career, which hopefully this is like him going there. It's just the accent and the swagger and the dress, the way he dresses. It's all chef's kiss. Like I love it. And
Yeah.
he
Well,
really
it's a
like,
very it's like what's his name? It's like Jack Nicholson and
one of my favorite scenes in the
look.
movie. One of my favorite scenes in the movie is when she finally meets him for a drink, and they just have this like back and forth, and it's just two really charismatic actors playing batshit crazy characters. Like, it's so much fun. It's such a fun scene. I do love the actor. What's her name? Who plays the director? She's great too. She definitely
Elizabeth
feels like
Debicki.
okay. She definitely feels to me like she's in another movie. Like she is acting in a
Yeah.
way that's different from everyone else, but it doesn't. It's not necessarily like a bad thing. I
Well,
would
yeah.
like to crow for a moment here, John, because
Just a
when-
moment?
You're not on Slack, but when a lot of people, or when the trailer came out and people saw the shot of the Psycho house, people started theorizing that maybe the movie she was going out for was Psycho 2 because they were lining it up to like the time period. I'm like, if they mention Psycho 2 in this movie, I will eat my hat. Like, there's just no way. I was like, they're just going to walk by the house and it's going to be creepy. That's it. And that's 100%.
She went in the house.
She does go in the house briefly. Yeah. But like, that's all it was just
Well,
like,
and
let's
she
show the house.
sees Pearl in the house.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's Eric. The whole point, your point about Elizabeth Debicki being in another movie. There's a. It's not a quite a separate movie, but there is a lot of Hollywood commentary that's happening throughout this movie.
100%.
That she's mainly the vehicle of.
And she has what I think is like my favorite line in the movie, and I can't remember it verbatim, but it's when she is kind of giving. It's after she's hired her, and she's on set, and she's giving her this warning about Hollywood, and she says something like, be careful or the beast will like lose its taste for you and spit you back out. It's like so dramatic, and it's so on the nose. I just love like her delivery of that line.
Yeah.
You know, and it's interesting too. Like, I think we said this about X. Like, what's fascinating about X is it is a crass, like exploitation heavy horror film with a lot of nudity and sex that still manages to like be modern with a lot of its themes about gender and sexuality, even though it's looking at them through a lens of the 70s, which is like, you couldn't be farther away from where we are now, right? And they do more of that here, I feel like, through this character of the director, the fact that she's even like in Hollywood making these movies and she's trying to be an artist and like prove herself. You also get a little bit of that, again, like a sort of modern take on gender tropes through an antiquated movie trope with the two officers. And I'm sure, what's her name? I love her.
Michelle Monaghan.
Michelle Monaghan.
They're really, their whole shtick I was pretty into. They're pretty funny. But again, like that character gets such a better, she comes off so much as like the better partner in a way that she wouldn't even be a character if this movie was actually made in the 80s, right?
Yeah.
So I love that. And I think that's like one of the most interesting things he's done with these films is, again, like make throwback movies that feel modern. And I think and maybe that's part of my thing. I was missing that in Pearl, because Pearl is such a different kind of beast than these two. Like X and, obviously, I mean, they're the same story, but X and MaxXxine feel much more like connected, like even thematically and storytelling wise and everything. Anyway, I think it's really good. It's really entertaining. I do think, like, and we can just spoil it, but I keep going back and forth on the reveal, the third act reveal. I think, like, it's a great through line, right? Like, that this father of hers, who we see in these preacher TV shows in X, that he comes full circle, is involved in the story, and he's trying to like cure her of her sin. It makes sense.
So
my beef with it is this, or this is what I felt in the moment. Like, that character of the preacher in X is so like creepy and foreboding, the way he almost like casts a shadow over the whole film by repeatedly kind of appearing on the TV. And during the finale, like, that's fucking brilliant, the way that's on TV while the final fight is going down. And then the actor gets sucked into this movie, but again, I keep going back and forth, because I'm also like, you ever seen the ending of Opera? The killer reveal in Opera is the fucking corniest, cheesiest thing you've ever seen in your life. And it literally ends with a bunch of people chasing him into a field, and he's like, oh. And so, like, I feel like, weirdly, how cheesy the reveal in the third act is actually very faithful to a lot of those 80s giallo films that would build up these amazing whodunits and then just sort of like the wackiest out of left field killer reveal. What bugs me about it is that to me, it steals all the gravitas from that character, because he's playing like a 1980s over-the-top horror villain revealed. So like I said, I keep going back and forth. That said, I absolutely love the ending. Like, I love the scene on the Hollywood Hills with, I mean, it's literally like she ends her story by literally climbing the mountain and being under the Hollywood sign, right? Like, that's her Lord of the Rings. Like, she made it to the Hollywood sign. And I liked the cutting back. And like, I think they totally nail the landing, stick the ending, but I'm still back and forth on the dad reveal, I guess, is how I feel.
Yeah, it didn't. So I haven't seen X since we watched it for the show 2 years ago. So I'm hazy. And then you have Pearl that came out in between that was a totally different movie. I'd kind of forgotten that the dad character was in the first movie. So now looking back, knowing and refreshing my memory that he showed up in there, it makes a little bit more sense. But
I've seen X about 4 or 5 times. Like, I watch it.
See, I've only seen it the
At
once.
least
So
once a
for
year.
me, it gets a little muddied with the whole Night Stalker stuff going on, where I realize that once they start talking about the copycat and stuff, and then it just kind of feels like the dad just shows up out of nowhere, and it's just like, well, where did this come from? Is what sets me off for that third act.
It's to me the part that it's all whatever. Eric, the way you're defending, I mean, I realize you were saying you're back and forth, but it's a real, like, you're making the right case, which is
Yeah.
all these movies have fucking weird endings. You know, it's like it is what it is.
Like
Fine.
when I look at
Yeah.
when I look at it through the lens of the films he's sending up, like it makes perfect sense.
Well,
Yeah.
the thing that
It's
was
just
weird to
jarring.
me was then this scene of all the followers and like where were the followers during this whole? Because he's in.
They were the
Hollywood
protesters.
stalking
Right.
her.
So
They're
there's
the
a
protesters.
there's a throw out line about how
Okay.
they were all the protesters. Yeah.
And they showed one of the guys. There was a guy that had like a fedora hat and a beard.
Yeah.
And they showed him
They
back
do-
at the mansion.
I
Yeah.
clocked that it was like one. I don't know. I didn't clock that it was all of the protesters. I mean,
I
again,
just assumed they were all.
It is a throwaway line that someone says during that finale scene when there's 20 other things happening.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
how do they have the money to be living in LA, executing this plan?
I kind of assumed. They
I mean,
were
he's a
squatting there, but I don't know.
televangelist.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah,
also
I
a
guess.
televangelist, which in the 80s was big money.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he'd been going
Sure.
for a while at that point too.
Yeah.
true.
It's one of the things, getting back, Eric, to what you said about like what I loved about this and the way that it subverted some things. I feel like the fact that this is set in the adult entertainment industry is the least sleazy part of this movie, actually.
It is.
Right. Like, and I love that. And like you're saying, like X is actually like really wholesome, even though it's about a bunch of people making a dirty movie. Like the people, the way that 80s movies treated women with ambition, right? It was this moment of like kind of women moving up corporate ladders, and women were punished in all kinds of ways in these movies. And in that era, like if you'd actually watched an 80s one, that don't happen here. Like her ambition is just what it is, and it makes her monstrous. Like the Betty Davis quote, it makes her monstrous to some people, both her and the director, but it's not, it's just pretty
Yeah.
straight ahead and understandable.
The perfect example is there. I think it was towards the end where they did the flashback back to her audition, and they show her afterwards, and she stands up and said, "You best just cast me now, because I'm the best thing you've
Well,
ever seen."
And I love their relationship. I love how the director not only sees that in her, but it's why she casts her.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that sort of quality that she has. I like that dynamic between the two of them.
That
You know
director
what, a
character
char-
would not have survived this movie in the 80s, for sure.
No, not at all. And she would have been a PA, and not her director.
She would have been killed.
One of my.
Yeah.
We talked about a lot of the guest stars and stuff in this one, but one of the other characters that I really loved was her friend that ran the video store. I thought that character was great.
Super
and
funny.
I like their relationship between the two of them, where you see him, like, when they cut to that scene where she wakes up, she's sleeping on the couch with him, but they're obviously, the way he talks shit to her and everything else, it's obviously a platonic relationship, and I thought it was framed really well, too. And I felt bad for him when he stepped outside, when he first stepped outside that door. You knew his time was coming, and I was kind of sad to see him go.
Yeah. And I love the way that this movie looks at the way that Satanic Panic, like, worried about all the wrong things, right?
Yes.
Like, there was so much that kids were overexposed to in the 80s, but Prince lyrics and Satanism were low on the list of things that actually, did any damage to anybody. So he's just like this very wholesome horror dude who works in a porn store in his Judas Priest t-shirt, and he's got all the markings of things that parents would be scared about, and was just one of the most wholesome things in the movie.
And
Yeah,
such
right,
a
like, this
contrast to
whole-
Mia Goth.
This whole
Yeah.
place, though, like you're saying, Matilda, in an 80s film would have been shown to have been so like scary and sleazy. And what's really happening here is we're getting like a very human picture of people that just exist there.
That's another interesting factor that just popped in my head about this movie is there's a lot of talk about how, with MaxXxine talking about how she wants to be famous and that's the goal, but then there's also comments she makes about making money doing the sex work. in the porn films and things like that. And there's a conversation between her and Halsey. It's an interesting aspect because that she's not if this was an 80s movie, she would have been living in like a slum, right? But she actually had like a Mercedes convertible, a decent apartment for LA. It seems like she was actually pretty well off at the start,
Well, she was
this movie,
she
right?
was making it. She was
Yeah.
like a famous porn actress.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
and she
my
wasn't
God.
so she wasn't like destitute at the point where that's a different aspect of these movies.
I just remembered Larry Fessenden as the security guard, and he's got the best line when she goes to check in, and he just looks her, and she says her name, and he goes, "Yes, you are," and then he goes, "I love your work."
Dude,
she like,
I
drives
didn't clock that was him.
Yeah, and then
it's
he's the one who
fascinating.
comes back and throws what's his
Kevin
name? off.
Bacon out.
Yeah, Kevin Bacon
Yeah.
off.
That'll-
the-
Yes.
Good old
That-
Larry Fessenden.
I thought that was going to be the only time we saw him, and I was like, God bless him. They put him, and he
out
looks.
there.
They like. I mean, look, he's he's getting older, but he just looks ridiculous in this. Like They kind of just.
You couldn't have cast
You know.
a more perfect person to deliver that line.
Yeah, no, it was amazing. Yeah. I forgot about that too until you said it.
I honestly didn't
So
clock that
good.
was him.
Yeah.
I never miss Fessenden.
No,
I can smell him before he's even there. I just sit
Yeah, even the cocaine
best.
in this movie is just used as like a performance enhancing drug, essentially. Like there's nothing glamorous about it. It's like the cup of coffee before you go to work.
Yeah. The goose full of coke was impressive.
Yeah. Yeah, the whole theater
Well-
burst out laughing when we saw it. Yeah.
yeah. I did not clock it, but Rachel was telling us that she has a pet goose in Pearl. Pearl has a pet goose.
Oh.
Yeah. Which I didn't remember, but
Yeah, I didn't
Didn't
remember
she
that.
send a link? Isn't A24 selling?
No, it was
like
in their
this
office,
now
I
or
think.
yeah,
or
they
something.
just
Oh,
I think
okay,
it
they
was
just
just like
posted
on
a
their
picture.
social
I
media.
gotcha.
That's and I was like,
They should.
because they don't even make a big thing out of it in the movie. It's just one scene with the goose, but yeah, they might. They very well could, Eric. Save your money.
Yeah.
So
But more than anything, because I've only seen the X and Pearl once too, it's got me really fired up. I want to go back and watch these again from the beginning when this comes out on video to see it as a whole.
well, so back to my one of the questions I started with. Why does Pearl go second? Like, why not do Pearl and then X? I mean, Eric, you make the point that like if you don't know about X, maybe Pearl like loses. That does drive some of the tension or weight of that film.
Don't forget though, they were both pandemic movies, basically shot back to back.
Yeah.
So my guess
Yeah.
is he pitched them that way because I bet it wasn't originally a trilogy
I don't think
until
I
X
mean-
came out and did really well.
They
shot
hold
both
on.
of
They
them
definitely
for-
shot the first two, so like he was definitely making both of those. And
No,
but,
for sure. But like a trilogy might not have been guaranteed, and you couldn't have shot this movie when they shot those first two.
yeah, fair.
Well, I think if you go back to like Eric was saying earlier too, Pearl could stand on its own. If you took the MaxXxine angle out of it, it could still be a horror movie on its own. So I think that's part of it too.
I maintain that it could not. I know people
Oh,
say that.
I thought
but
you
I
said
don't
it
think.
could.
I don't. Yes, you could sit through it. It's a film. Like you could follow it, but I don't think anybody would have cared.
Well, I think
If there
that's why
wasn't
they
for that
chose for it
connection.
to go second.
But this
The only
my
thing
point.
that makes it interesting is knowing how tragic that character turns out to be. To me,
though to me is one of the and
otherwise, like, what are you watching when that's going on? You know.
I made this point earlier, but just because it's a version of the same point you're making now. One of my complaints with MaxXxine is that it like calls too much back to X. Like I would have liked it to be more of a standalone film. Like if each of them were their own standalone films in some way.
Interesting.
That's like a more
But that's the
interesting
majority of the
trilogy.
plot is like her being
sure. The,
stalking her about what happened. Right?
well, and the dad stuff. Yeah, totally. But all the like flashbacks to her in the house with Pearl, like I didn't really need it. Like, does it add anything? I mean, I guess it.
you know
it's
what it
sort of
did,
like
John? It made me
maintenance.
nostalgic for a time in the world where you could murder a bunch of people in one state and then just like go to another
Move to a
state.
different
Like, there's
state.
no computers. Just go somewhere else.
I didn't have a problem with the flashbacks. I took them as just a visualization of her losing her shit
Sure.
And getting having those flashbacks and getting overwhelmed. I think it's just to visualize that, but I thought it worked well.
That's sort of the effect that it's meant to have. There's a version of this movie that is a standalone version that I think, could work almost as well. Although it would make the third act tougher to pull off.
Yeah.
You'd have to have a lot more exposition around this dad and why the hell he's going after her.
Who are you, sir?
Yeah.
Wait, what? Your dad's a priest? or a preacher or whatever. Yeah.
Love it. The music's great.
Yeah. You know what I love? I love,
and it's constant, which I loved. It's very
I loved when
music.
There's like a real dig at the St. Elmo's Fire song. It's like playing on the radio, and he's
the Casey Kasem part. Yeah,
laying into it.
I love St. Elmo's Fire so
Oh
much.
yeah, yeah.
That movie.
Yeah.
Okay, you and me, Matilda. That movie is incredible.
Yes.
Well, it was a hit, wasn't it? Didn't
Cancer.
it do well?
Yeah.
It had to have been a hit, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I
do
freaking
think
loved
that's
it.
that's like what he's commenting against at some level, and like the song and like the way that it was like part of the Hollywood machine.
Yeah.
It's
love
such
the
a
cut to Bette
great
Davis
song
eyes.
for that. Yeah. It has everything. There's Rat in this movie. Like even early on when we see Dee Snider, I was like, I am
The
in
Dee Snider,
1985.
yeah.
The Dee Snider of it all.
Did you fact check it? Is that from 85? Is that like,
I don't know. I would assume
yeah.
like
Yeah.
PMRC stuff for sure. Because it was right after
believe-
Purple Rain.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's so
And they
wild
pulled
looking
a
when
lot.
He shows up.
And that was like the
Was there not a year title card or some kind of explicit?
Yeah,
no,
there
I
was.
just mean that
There
that
was.
Dee Snider is like a real thing that happened, and I was just curious.
Yeah,
he
his
testified,
testimony.
yeah.
I watched that.
I
Yeah.
remember that from
Yeah.
behind the music.
I was gonna say, I think I remember watching that when it happened too. I mean,
I remember that from childhood. Yeah.
they got the
Gen-
satanic panic stuff down pretty well, from what
The
I
Gen
remember.
Xers here were like actually there when it happened.
yeah.
I was 3.
Yeah.
My
it was-
parents propped me up on a pillow, and they're like, "There's Dee Snider,"
Well, and there was
Very
also another.
important.
There was another weird thing. My partner grew up in San Francisco, and the Night Stalker was working both LA and San Francisco. And he was 13 in this year, and they had just moved to this house in San Francisco where he got like the teenager privilege of like, you can have the basement, but that's the ground floor entrance. And the Night Stalker killed someone like a mile from their place. And so he has a memory of walking past the house where the Night Stalker had like crawled in somebody's window and murdered them. And he said it's like a childhood thing for him, as he slept with a pipe next to his bed in case the Night Stalker came in.
Those
I mean-
cops were like so confident so quickly that it wasn't the Night Stalker that I was like, how do you know that though? Like, I mean, it wasn't, but still.
Yeah.
And I was actually glad because one of my least favorite tropes in movies is when we spend a lot of time with the main character, we know they didn't murder somebody, and then a bunch of cops are like, you murdered somebody, and it's like half the movie. It's like, it's just so annoying. So I was glad that they didn't go down that road. Like, it pretty
Yeah.
quickly turned to them just trying to help her.
Yeah.
But that guy, Bobby Cannavale, is that his name?
Kind of, yeah.
He's just delightful.
He's
He's the best.
Great.
Yeah.
He's great in Boardwalk Empire. If you've ever seen that. He's like the villain in one of the seasons.
I just love how he was trying to be an actor, and so that sort of a
That was
nice
a great
little-
bit, honestly.
nice little bit
Yeah.
he's gotten here.
Yeah, him and Monaghan are so good together too. The way her dry responses to all of his acting questions was killing me. And her best outfit was the leather jacket, just to say, for Michelle Monaghan. She was very 80s.
Yeah. I don't think she got any boots. There were a lot of boots in this movie, but I don't think she got any
Yeah.
It's tough.
cop boots. Yeah.
All right. Would you recommend this movie, Matilda?
Yes.
Casey?
Yes.
Jonathan?
Yes.
All right. Let's take a quick break and do some fan mail.
feedback to info@bloodygoodhorror.com or on Twitter using hashtag AskBGH. Join Patreon to get back episodes and much more. Patreon.com/bloodygoodhorror.
John, Rachel in the chat, I had to investigate because she said I was right about something, so I was like, tell me more.
She's dropping knowledge.
Yeah.
So it was not originally a trilogy. It was supposed to be just X because of the quarantine. Basically, he pitched, like, what if we shot this second movie during, like, a 2-week stretch while we're out there? And then while they were filming that, him and Mia Goth came up with the idea for MaxXxine.
Okay.
So it was originally just supposed to be X.
Makes sense.
There you go.
I
I
believe
got,
it.
like, my top 10 list here, guys.
I was gonna ask you to. I was expecting you to be pulling that up. There's still some garbage on there, so
I'm gonna put this at number 4.
Okay.
So that's I Saw the TV Glow, Lisa Frankenstein, Love Lies Bleeding, MaxXxine, In a Violent Nature is my top 5. And that bumps Humane off the list.
Cronenberg's.
We hardly knew ye.
Next time.
Info at bloodygoodhorror.com is the email address. Very important email, John, from this guy named Yakov. He says, hey, I made a 2-minute video for your company so you can save more than 50% on payroll by hiring the top 5% of overseas talent. Can I send it here? I want to see what you thought, John, about replacing us with overseas talent.
Yeah. Do they work cheaper than you guys? That would be weird.
That would be difficult. All right, Casey, what do we got on threads this evening?
All right, we got quite a few threads.
I should check my threads too because I accidentally posted it to mine first.
So our first one comes from our longtime friends, Frygay13. As someone that is semi-new to this sleazy subgenre, what are some of your favorite movies that inspired this?
I really would like to check out some of the De Palma stuff that's referenced here because I'm a huge fan of his in general, but that's a pretty big blind spot for me. So you guys tell me.
I don't know if it inspired this, but I would recommend Liquid Sky if you want to go back and watch some weird 80s art movie from this era, like about downtown New York, like new wave club scene world. That's a great weird movie.
That movie looks fucking crazy.
I'm going to tell you
the description.
I was going to tell you that you should reach out to Fulci's Eye Fetish on Threads, who is our friend Joe Ferry. That man is the expert. He can tell you what you want to know.
That's true. It's true.
Oh, Angel. Yeah.
Yeah, Angel's like a big
What's
one.
the one with Karen Allen that I always see clips from? That's a similar kind of vibe, right? Is that Body Double?
Is it a De Palma movie? It might be Body Double.
Melanie
Yeah, I think it's
Griffith.
Body Double.
I'm looking. The one I've seen Dressed to Kill. I think I've seen Body Double too, actually, but it's been a while. Blowout. I've seen.
No, sorry, I'm
Travolta.
Nancy Karen Allen. LOL.
Yeah, Nancy
Nancy Allen is in Dress to Kill.
That's
what I'm
Dressed to
talking
Kill.
about. Yeah. Is that good? That's
it's
what I always
awesome.
see clips from.
Yeah.
I was going to say Karen Allen's in an erotic thriller.
It's
Tell me more.
Calm down.
it's Michael Caine. It's very good.
I do.
That's
like
kind
that
of
too.
I don't know if you're only gonna do one. I mean, Carrie. Whatever. De Palma's done some great movies. Like there's a lot of.
I was watching Scarface today, which is one of my favorites. Sure.
It reminded me he directed a video for that Frankie Goes to Hollywood. He directed a second video of Relax that's just in the universe of Body Double, so you can also watch that. Like as they're moving through the sex club and Body Double. Kind of like the St. Elmo's Fire video is set in the universe of St. Elmo's Fire.
Nice.
It's an
On
80s
the
thing.
Giallo front, like if you haven't seen Opera, that's the one to start with for me. Like to me,
Yeah.
it's the most. It gets real wacky in the end, like I was saying, but I think it's the most accessible of the Argento ones. Same thing
I
with
actually
Tenebrae.
don't think I've seen Opera.
Opera's great, and it's
think
real
I have
wacky. Tenebrae is the other one. Like Tenebrae is just really Like Opera leans more horror-y, whereas Tenebrae is just straight up like hard-boiled whodunit.
Yeah.
That's just very violent in that
Well, we,
sort of,
co-
like 80s
we covered Tenebrae like
Italian way.
very early in the show.
Did
like,
we review it?
Year one,
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Which is one of the only, I've seen that, but
I mean,
All
both
right.
have amazing soundtracks too.
We got a couple more here. We also hear from Ryan Tehan. How we all feeling about the announcement of yet another VHS?
Yeah, it's
I just assume they're making them.
yeah, why
kinda
not?
indefinitely
They're
now.
cheap to make. Might as well just keep making them.
This has Justin Long as a director listed and Kate Siegel. I'm kind of interested in that aspect.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you get good directors and stop making it like a baby's first short film put together in an anthology, then I'm down.
You know
Yeah.
what I would watch? I think there is a second one coming, maybe even this year. Is Satanic Hispanics too?
Oh, it was awesome.
yeah.
'cause
I mean,
that's
we covered it on the show. No one heard, but
What made those first few VHS movies so good is like they got interesting directors. Like Ty
Yeah.
West had a great segment. They had Ed Sanchez. Like when it got unwatchable, once it just started being like only up and comers. Like I get it, and it's great to give people opportunities, but like it has to be good, John, or I'm not gonna.
Yeah,
yeah,
you got to at
being
least
good helps.
You have to have help the up and comers, but you have to have at least one or two blockbusters in there for you.
Jace says that Mike Flanagan is directing something in the new VHS.
What?
I just see
That's
Kate
wild.
Siegel, so
Yeah.
Maybe they finally listened after a review of the last one, John.
They heard.
Maybe
They heard
listened.
you. Yeah.
Yeah.
maybe
Where I was
she's
like,
gonna
get
put
it together.
maybe she's gonna put Mike Flanagan in her movie.
Mike Flanagan listened to the show and was like, "Ah, shit. I guess I gotta go do one of these VHSs."
She's like, you got to give a long speech about death and the nature of existence. That's-
All right. Drummer from Foghat asks, do you think if Jason and Johnny from In a Violent Nature cross paths in the woods, they give the other a knowing shrug like damn teens, am I right?
Maybe
Or
just like a high
like,
five.
you know, like dueling head tilts in different directions. Just like,
Mask tips.
is that his name, Johnny? I already
Apparently.
forgot. Yeah.
Next up, we have Matt Lloyd Poet. This is a fight question that we haven't had in a long time, but I think it's very appropriate for this episode. Who would win in a fight, Cobra Stallone or Schwarzenegger Running Man?
Man, I have almost watched that movie Cobra several times. I feel like I would really like it.
I think I saw it in the theater.
I have not. I just
did that. Oh, Casey.
haven't pulled the trigger on it for some reason.
What year was it? It was probably like 83 or something.
I think it's 80.
Is it 80?
I think it's later than that.
Yeah,
I
thought
think
it
it's
was,
closer to 83.
Oh, it's 86.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I was 12.
I'm
by then,
going
so
Running
it wasn't
Man.
that outrageous. I would go Running Man too. I
know
don't think
that I
I got
have
much of the.
enough.
I've never seen The Running Man.
Really?
It's sweet.
Yeah.
They're remaking it. I think they're doing it as a TV show right
I'm
now.
not a big Schwarzenegger person in general.
It's good 80s cheesy
What is-
sci-fi though. Action
It's-
sci-fi.
I was gonna say it's basically they watched a bunch of pro wrestling and then we're like, we're gonna make a sci-fi action movie, but
Yeah.
like have that action going on too.
Well, yeah, they had wrestlers in there too.
Yeah.
What's
I will say Cobra has like one of, if not the best 1980s movie poster.
yeah.
The artwork
peak.
is amazing.
It's peak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As a 12-year-old who saw it in theaters, really all it needed was Brigitte Nielsen.
I know. I just saw she was on here.
All right, finally we have from Calinot. What are the movies you think of when you think about 70s, 80s Grindhouse? Texas Chainsaw is probably in there, but what else?
Last House on the Left.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
I was
Hills
go
Have
back-
Eyes. I mean,
Yeah,
Some
I
of
always
those
go
are-
Basket Case.
yeah.
Toxic Avenger.
How old is that? Is that I guess
Early
it's
80s.
80s. Is it?
80,
Yeah.
yeah, 6.
I mean, I've only really seen the stuff that like still screened. You know,
84.
I guess a lot of it's now on Shutter. Like you go through Shutter, there is a ton of shit on there that I'm like, wait, where did this come from?
I know,
Yeah.
and
But-
honestly, I never use Shutter unless I'm going to watch it last drive-in.
I
Yeah,
still
well,
use
stuff-
it, but it's not. I don't like the
use it.
menus as much.
They don't. They used to have, when you would go on the desktop version, they had 3 different live channels. Now they only have 1.
Yeah.
They have it on the TV app too.
They dropped the ball so hard on those live channels. Like even when they had 3 of them, it would be the same programming for months on end. And it's just like, what are you guys doing? This is a brilliant idea, and you are boning it up.
Yeah. I mean, you had this
Still,
live
I'm still
channels.
salty about it. I've been saying this for
Yeah.
years in the show, John.
Well, now that stuff's all basically been replaced by these like fast channels, which like maybe there's a Shutter fast channel. I have no idea, but
You mean like on a HD, like point whatever channel?
yeah, those have commercials, but
Yeah, and they're not,
people
I wouldn't
watch 'em.
imagine, uncensored because they're broadcast.
I actually don't know. Good question. I've not watched them. If you fire up like Tubi, they don't have uncensored channel. Like there's not like uncensored R-rated movies on there.
I
Yeah, there
want
is.
a curated
there is.
channel. Is what
Yeah,
I
that's what I
want.
figured.
Tubi's got all sorts of crazy horror stuff. They definitely
Yeah,
have
It
R-rated.
does. Yeah.
With
Tubi will
commercials.
auto
though.
play at least,
Yeah, with commercials.
which is nice. Like Tubi will just auto play and queue you up. And if you happen to start like a movie that has sequels and you leave it, you'll see all of them.
Yeah, you'll go through.
Good
all
night,
of
sweet prince.
You know what I learned
You're-
today, yesterday
you're
in
in it.
Slack, John? Or I don't know what the hell day it is. That there was a Tremors movie with John Heater in it recently. From Napoleon Dynamite.
them.
Good
Really?
Lord.
Oh god.
Good God.
Was
Okay.
Bert still in it?
Yeah. It was the 2 of them on the cover.
Nice.
Of course he is. What? You're not making one of those without that dude.
Well, I wanted to
His
see
life's
how.
work.
I wanted to see how far they dipped, if they dropped him or not.
He's the whole thing.
I was like,
Can't
wait,
get rid of him.
is there? Did he have other things he was doing? Like what?
Oh,
I think he plans his year around when they're doing a Tremors. It's just like,
yeah.
well, we got to go on vacation in March this year.
We're thinking of going to Spain, so let's do another.
Yeah. Okay.
That's it for threads.
No one responded to my thread, Casey, so whatever. All right. Michael, with not a question. Well, I mean, okay, there's a question mark at the end, technically. How much better or worse would this movie have been if we got Kid Cudi's Hog one more time? He just wanted to hear me say that. You're welcome. Caitlin from Plug It Up. Ty West jerks it to Giallo movies. True or false? I don't think Caitlin liked X, and it doesn't sound like she liked this one. So
Oh yeah, Eric, you never asked your question about the heel tip scene.
no, I did.
Oh, you did.
Yeah. No,
Oh,
we
that's
talked about
right. That's right. Yeah, you
Chatted
did.
about
Sorry.
Ashton, favorite silent movie star. Buster Keaton is mine, but the movie did him dirty. I sent you guys my
Sure
response
did.
to this. Like, I have a favorite silent movie. Like, I prefer movies with sound.
Yeah.
So, made in this century.
Yeah, you do. I mean,
So,
I've
what you
seen
got?
like 2 other silent movies. Like I've seen a couple of the Charlie Chaplin things. Yeah, because even like I mean,
Like,
Three
yeah,
Stooges
I can
had
appreciate
sound.
it from a
Like,
historical
I've seen a bunch of
perspective, but
those.
I'm not just hanging out on a Friday night watching silent movies, John.
No.
Yeah, I'm not cultured enough to have an answer to this at all.
I couldn't make it through Nosferatu on the last drive-in. I don't know if you remember that. I was real salty when that was on.
Oh, have you? Apparently, the trailer for that's out though. The Robert Eggers.
The new one, the Robert Eggers one.
Yeah,
I haven't
I saw the
watched the
first trailer.
Yay!
Right? Favorite
Yay
Yeah.
or nay?
song.
Oh.
I think it looked pretty impressive.
From Levi, favorite 80s song.
Oh,
God, this is where
First
it's
thing
like I
that
don't want to
came-
name
Too many.
something and then it's
First
like
thing
from
that popped
90.
into my mind was Tainted Love.
that's
Pretty
a good
good.
one.
It's a great song.
I really love.
I'm like a
I was gonna say it's not my favorite, but I really loved hearing Betty Davis at the end of this. It's just a good song.
I love Poison by Alice Cooper. That's one I would, like, really rock out to if it comes on.
That's great. I love everything from Jim Steinman, who was responsible for like all the Meatloaf and the Bonnie Tyler and some of the Air Supply.
Oh yeah,
I
Meatloaf.
really like that guy. Yeah.
We exposed our children to Meatloaf while we were driving for 10 hours the other day. Oh, good times.
Yeah.
Did they see Paradise by the dashboard lights?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He also did a lot of Sisters of Mercy, which is hilarious to me. So yeah. Anything that's like big with too much arrangement is him. Those are all my favorites.
Well, Bonnie Tyler's a good one too. I love Total
Yeah.
Eclipse of the Heart.
Yeah.
All right. What kind of music did you listen to in the 80s, Matilda, generally?
It depended. I was doing a lot of jazz dance as a kid, so I'd listen to a lot of, the big. I listened to a lot of Prince. It's part of why I watched those PMRC hearings, is because they were coming for Prince, and I was like, I saw Purple Rain when I was 11. That was my first concert, and I think it caused me to start puberty. And so like, and so, anybody that came for him, I listened to a lot of Motley Crue in the 80s. And then as I went on towards the late 80s and I was a teenager, I got snobbier. And so I listened
Yeah,
to
when I
a
was
lot
a
of
kid, I
Bauhaus.
fucking loved Motley Crue. So
They're
awesome.
great.
You ever see Hot Tub Time Machine?
Yes.
It's good, some good like Motley Crue stuff going on there.
Oddly, I never got into Motley Crue in the 80s.
No?
Yeah. I mean, I don't mind their music, but I'm not like a diehard fan, but they never caught me then. But I was in a weird phase, like going through like 10 to 12. I was listening to a lot of Beach Boys and crap like that. And then all my parents had was
Oh.
country music. So it took a while before I started discovering the good stuff.
I would say another one I was just thinking of, this little cliche, being a horror fan, but Thriller, the song, is all
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great
I
song,
just saw a
great
clip
video.
on YouTube yesterday of Vincent Price talking about how he like didn't make any money off that song, which is a tragedy because like half of it being so amazing is his monologue.
Oh, yeah.
If you ask me what the best song in the like early 80s, like 81, 82 era, young Casey would have told you the Curly Shuffle.
I don't know what that is.
It's the do the
that?
Curly Shuffle. Hey, it's a song about Curly from the Three Stooges.
Oh.
I had it on 45 and everything.
Oh my god.
Do you remember Pac-Man Fever? That was a big,
Yes.
like,
Oh yeah.
big record on the radio about in the zeitgeist.
Nothing.
The Super
I got
Bowl
nothing
Shuffle.
for you.
Remember that, John?
The what?
All right, the Super Bowl Shuffle.
Yeah, well, that I
The
remember.
Oh,
80s,
yeah,
Six
of
Bears.
course.
That I remember.
Yeah.
Refrigerator.
Not when it happened. But I've since learned about it.
Okay, two more questions. Merle, does this trilogy make Ty West a master of horror? I think in the sense that other people have called themselves that or been considered that. Like, yeah, I think he's considering he's like a genre dude and he's now made 3 really good movies that did really well.
I like his other movies too. I mean, we talked about Sacrament. Like,
Yeah, for sure.
that movie. He's done great stuff.
It's
Sure.
nobody would be more shocked to hear me saying this, John, than like 2009 Eric. But here we are. Ty West.
Yeah.
Master
I
of
kind of
horror.
want to go back and watch Sacrament again after watching that Jonestown documentary on Hulu.
Lest you think, John, people are not capable of change. You're seeing it
Oh,
before your
I
very eyes.
know. Look at you, Paragon.
Come a long way. Last question of the evening from Dustin. Expectations for Long Legs.
Pretty high.
Yeah,
Hi.
Worryingly high.
No, see, I'm like tempering it because I saw the trailer and I was like, I feel like it's probably real heavily inspired by Silence of the Lambs, which is fine. It's really going to hinge on Cage. What Cage are we getting here?
He's
We
not
getting
in
serious
it that
actor
long. I
Cage?
thought he was only in it like a little bit.
I don't know. I'm pretty sure he's the killer.
So what
Oh,
the
he might-
last trailer makes it look like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that voice, that creepy voice you hear, I'm pretty sure is him, like in the trailers.
Yeah, did you call the number?
No way.
Did you call it
I
over?
Yes, I absolutely did with my girlfriends and put it on the car stereo. Put it on the Bluetooth.
So what
we could all
happens?
be creeped out. He's just creepy at you. It's a lot of breathing,
It's like Black Christmas.
a lot of Nick Cage breathing. Yeah.
Nice.
Wild. No, I think it's going to be good. And I really like Mike Monroe, and I don't have any reason to not trust people's opinions. We are going to just hear so many people that are like, this was overhyped. And that's my least favorite conversation. But what are you going to do?
That's why I'm most excited, because I have not been hyped on this one. I saw the latest trailer once. I didn't even know Nick Cage was in it till like 2 weeks ago. So,
Guys, I have an important
Now-
question for you as we are wrapping.
Yeah.
I have not listened to last week's episode. I am going to. Here's the thing, though. Should I see the movie?
See what movie?
The Quiet Place Day One or whatever
No,
the fuck it's called.
absolutely not. You should
Okay,
not.
great.
No.
I would argue that it's worth a seeing, but you don't need to go see it in the theater.
I will tell you, John, I was the only person who didn't really like it.
All right,
if
I'll listen to the show first.
You live in New York, so if you can read it
Yeah.
as a disaster movie, you might like it.
Well, and that I think I said that on the show. Like I'm like dreading watching it, but then like I do like New York, set movies because I can be like, oh yeah, there's
Yeah.
Yeah.
that thing
Yeah, there's a lot of
that
that.
I walk by sometimes. Yeah.
But I don't think, it's not going to be in your, top 10 discussion. I don't
Nah.
think, personally.
I was considering seeing it today, and then I went to see Kill instead, which I was talking about before the show. And
Rachel,
loved.
with the last comment of the night. I'm not saying my expectations are high, but if it's not good, I'm walking into the sea. Relatable.
Yeah,
Understand. Is that this week, Sean?
yeah.
All right,
Comes
so I
out
have to figure out getting to a
know,
theater this
tomorrow.
week. That's what you're saying.
You sure do.
Love it. I can't wait. I haven't been creeped out in a while. The last thing that really, really creeped me out was Horror in the High Desert.
If this is secretly a spider movie, I'm going to
Okay.
be pissed.
Eh. Guess we'll see.
All right. That's going to do it. Hope you guys enjoy the show, and we'll talk to you next week.
See you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.